I'm Jessica, and tonight I'm talking about compassion fatigue. And I came up with this topic because I get to serve on the prayer team, and through my internship with Mark Benton, I get to also work with the care team. And so I'm noticing that we have a really good group of people here at Life Point. We get to serve, we get to provide people with all kinds of care in emergencies. But I was wondering about what we do for ourselves to care well, because if we tend to help people over and over again with no ability to find that middle ground, to find balance, then we run the risk of getting into this topic called compassion fatigue. So my hope tonight is to be able to define what compassion fatigue is, and then also provide examples of what it could look like for you, and then hopefully ways to avoid compassion fatigue so that you don't fall into the trap of being exhausted. So when I looked up compassion fatigue, as it tries to show up, okay. When I looked up the compassion fatigue definition, I didn't like it because it was negative at first. And so it was saying that we have negative feelings towards helping people, negative emotions towards helping people. And I really don't think that those of us who serve at Life Point feel negative about the help that we do. But I do think that over time, if we're helping people all the time, hearing all their stories, trying to respond to them in emergencies, but we don't do the things that we need to do to fill ourselves up, we can become exhausted or overwhelmed. So I've landed on this becoming exhausted by helping, because I felt like that more adequately would touch on what we could experience if we continue to help people too much without also helping ourselves. Okay. So when I think about compassion fatigue, I first heard it in my job as a counselor. First responders can experience compassion fatigue. Medical professionals can experience compassion fatigue, because what are they doing? They're responding to emergencies, they're listening to trauma, they're sometimes delivering bad news, sometimes they might deliver good news. But I think also with us at Life Point, we do that too. Sometimes people come in here and they need help. Sometimes we do care calls and we have to pray with people. So we're hearing about these emergencies that they're experiencing as well. So my argument is that those of us who are in ministry, if we don't find the balance between providing compassion, but then also providing compassion to ourselves, we could run the risk of becoming exhausted. So what does it look like? There are two levels. One is secondary traumatic stress, and I don't think that's where we are as Life Pointers. I hope y'all are not having nightmares about helping people. I hope that you don't have intrusive thoughts about helping people. And if you are, you can talk to Pastor Mark Delaney, or you can call the care team. But I do think that we might run the risk of being in this area called burnout. And I was told that burnout is a curse word at Life Point, so you have to say it in hushed tones. You can't use the word, or if you use the word, don't connect me with it. But it does have like a theme. So if we have compassion for people, and we're overwhelmed with the amount of compassion that we're providing to them, we run the risk of getting tired or overwhelmed or exhausted by helping them. That is what leads to the burnout. And then from burnout, we might run into feelings of hopelessness or helplessness. So it looks like I've heard from somebody, they've called me, they need gas money, I can provide it, but then what happens if somebody needs something from you that you just can't provide? That could cause you to feel helpless and feel like you're not really doing the work that we say that we do. What else can it look like? Burnout can look like headaches, it can look like being exhausted, it could look like stress, it could look like stomach aches. Sometimes when we're helping so much and we're not doing the things to restore ourselves, we can get really sick. And so we need to be really mindful in this season, in this pandemic year where we have so many people that need from us, that in our excitement to give, that we don't overlook ourselves. One place that I tend to fall into is the relational trap. I tend to withdraw from people. So even though I have a big personality, I'm very introverted. So when people are around me, they deplete me over time, and I want to go withdraw so that I can re-up. What this is not saying, so that's one thing, and I think that's healthy. There's another way to be withdrawn and be disconnected. And that's the fear, that you become so exhausted from your health, you become so burnt out, that you fail to be able to connect with people, and you'd rather choose not to talk to anybody. And then you end up isolating yourself. And I think that's where we fall into the trap with that. But guess what? As people in ministry, we don't get to say, I don't want to serve anyone anymore, and I don't want to help anybody anymore. As a matter of fact, every Sunday, we run into people in the auditorium who need prayer, who need help. We're members of the Dream Team. We do care calls. We pray on Tuesdays. We have a Slack channel that's called Prayers. And if you go in there, it can get very dark. So if you're not careful, you can run the risk of feeling exhausted, even in the things that we do every Sunday. And so what my thought process is, is you can't help other people if you're not helping yourself. If you are not taking and doing the work to restore yourself so that you can be healthy from someone else. So if you have a broken lamb and then you're also a broken lamb, you're just two broken people together. And so it's important that you're figuring out what are the things that I can do to recharge myself? How do I pour from an empty cup? I've also heard that if you're in an airport, if you're on an airplane and the cabin pressure reduces and the oxygen mask drops, you put the mask on you first before you can put the mask on somebody else and help. So we have to do the things for ourselves to restore ourselves before we can help other people. So what this looks like, because I have like 30 seconds, is to spend time with God and His Word. And I know that's something that we know how to do, but I think we get so caught up in doing all the serving for people that we forget to do the actual being with God. And so what I'm saying is being intentional in His Word to get restored. Not the shower prayer that I tend to do, and not the driving prayer that I tend to do, but actually just sitting at His feet and letting Him pour into you. I would also say develop healthy boundaries. I put that people weaponize their pain, and what that could be is like, you run into people who, I just want to tell anybody my story. And that's fair, but if I've heard the story, and you've heard the story, and you've heard the story, they may not actually want your help. They just may want to tell somebody what's going on for them. So you have to decide for yourself, what is the weight that I can carry for somebody else's burden? I'm not saying don't help people at all, but what I am saying is be mindful of how much time you spend helping them, because the more time you spend helping them, the less time you get to spend for yourself. And then the last one is to receive wise counseling and advising. So if you have spent time with God and you have developed those healthy boundaries, but you still find yourself feeling a little weak, talk to somebody else. Talk to your spiritual leader, talk to a mental health counselor if you need to, but do those things that you need to do to be able to restore yourself, because we don't want to do life alone, because I think that's when the enemy attacks us the most. Other people can pour into you and provide encouragement to you, and I would suggest we do that because we are better together. Under a minute, boom.